morning, classmates. Good morning, Mrs. Mayor. I'm Miss Arianel Catu. I'm Miss Kimberly Gonzalez. And I'm Mary May Roca. And I'm Miss Jillian Chong.
And I'm Mr. Giovanni Romo.
And you're on TQM News. For our first news, here is Mr. Giovanni Romo reporting the importance of change.
Total quality and organizational change. Psychology suggests that individuals go through 4 stages of learning. The first one is unconscious incompetence, which you don't know that you don't know. Conscious incompetence, you realize that you don't know. Conscious competence, you learn to do but with conscious effort. And last, the unconscious competence, which the performance comes effortlessly. So the success of every company depends on the organizational change that will guarantee for the future. Organizational change. Organizational change is fundamental to total quality. Indeed, there can be no quality without it. Anyone concerned with managing an organization dedicated to quality must understand what types of change are necessary in such an organization and how to manage them. So it explores cultural change, continuous improvement, breakthrough improvement, and organizational learning. The importance of change. Change is a way of life. Organizational change is needed in implementing TQ or total quality and constantly thereafter. Once total quality is underway in an organization, continuous improvement efforts will relentlessly create changes in product designs, standard operating procedures, and virtually every other aspect of organizations. Why are these changes necessary? The major reason is that customer expectations continuously evolve. Features or services that delight customers one year may be taken for granted the next year, and products that customers find acceptable one year may be perceived as substandard the next. Competition continues to raise the standard for quality, and organization must keep up. One of the good example of this is quality never goes out of style. In 1853, a young German immigrant named Strauss took a 17,000-mile trip on a clipper ship from New York around South America to San Francisco. He intended to set up a shop selling dry goods to people lured to California by the gold rush. By the time he reached San Francisco, however, he had sold all the goods he brought except for some canvas for tents. The miners told him he should have brought pants instead of canvas to sell, because most pants fell apart too quickly while they dug for gold. The enterprising young Strauss immediately took the heavy brown canvas to tailor and created the world's first pair of jeans. Those pants of Levi's, Strauss's first name, were so popular that he quickly sold all of his canvas and switched to a heavy serge of fabric made in Nimes, France, serge denims, eventually shortened to denim. When the new fabric was treated with indigo dye, it attained its familiar deep blue cover. Levi never liked the terms jeans, so he called his pants waist-high overalls. In fact, his company did not use the term, derived from the French word jeans, for a type of cotton trousers until long after his death. The popularity of Levi's jeans surged again in the 1950s when actor James Dean wore them in a movie, Rebel Without a Cause. Today, Levi's jeans are sold in more than 70 nations. The company says that they are made with the choicest fabric, the strongest thread, first-class buttons, rivets, and snaps, precise sewing, and careful inspection. The jeans carry a Levi Promise card guaranteeing customer satisfaction. With this history of continuous improvement in response to customer needs, it's no wonder that, as the company's slogan puts it, quality never goes out of style. Any organization that focuses on meeting a fixed set of quality goals will quickly find itself trampled into the dust by competitors racing to keep up with customers. As one Xerox executive stated, quality is a race without a finish line. Change is also required because processes tend to become unnecessarily complicated over a period of time, even when they are initially designed in a sensible manner. Cultural change. Culture is the set of beliefs and values shared by the people in an organization. It is what binds them together and helps them make sense of what happens in their company. The good example of this is the Eastman Way. The Eastman Way. Eastman Chemical Company recognizes that people create quality. This is embodied in the philosophy known as Eastman Way. The Eastman Way describes a culture based on the key beliefs and principles of respect, cooperation, fairness, trust, and teamwork. Developing such as a culture depends not only on learning how to recognize and reward behavior, but also understanding the processes and procedures that work against achieving corporate goals. The wake-up call came in the late 1970s when a key customer told the company that its product was not as good as its competitors and indicated that if things did not change, Eastman would lose business. Eastman's first realization was the customer feedback was essential to survival. In 1983, the company developed a quality policy and soon after began training in statistical process control, flow charting, and other basic tools. Production employees were encouraged to post their quality results, which became known as rat sheets. As one employee stated, "You are asking all of us to post of all our mistakes. How will these things be used?" This clash between the traditional hierarchical, disciplinary organizational culture and the open, honest environment demanded by total quality led to the Eastman Way, which is as follows. Eastman people are the key to success. We have recognized throughout our history the importance of treating each other fairly and with respect. We will enhance these beliefs by building upon the following values and principles: honesty and integrity, fairness, trust, teamwork, diversity, employee well-being, citizenship, and winning attitude. So, the Eastman Way emphasizes what culture is. Culture is expressed in the stories and jokes people tell, in how they spend their time at work, in what they display in their offices, and in 1,000 other large and small ways. Culture is also reflected by the management policies and actions that a company practices. Therefore, organizations that believe in the principles of total quality are more likely to successfully implement the practices. Conversely, actions set culture in motion. Behavior leads people to think in certain ways. Thus, as the total quality practices are used routinely with an organization, its people learn to believe in the principles and cultural changes can occur. Strategic change versus process change. Strategic change or strategy development and implementation stems from strategic objectives, which are generally externally focused and relate to significant customer, market, product or service, or technological opportunities and challenges. Process change or organizational change resulting from operational assessment activities deals with the operations of an organization. Strategic and process change differs in different aspects, like theme of change. In strategic change, it shifts in the organizational direction, while in process change, adjustment of organizational processes. In driving force, strategic change usually environmental forces such as market, rival, technological change, while in process change, usually internal. In typical antecedent, strategic change have a strategic planning process, while in process change, self-assessment of management system. How much of that organization changes? In strategic change, typically widespread, while in process change, often narrow or divisional or functional. And last, the example of strategic change is entering a new markets, seeking low-cost position, mergers, and acquisitions, while in process change, improving information systems. Elements of a total quality culture. The organizational culture needed to support total quality is one that values customers, improvement, and teamwork. In an organization with a total quality friendly culture, everyone believes that customers are the key to the organization's future and their needs must come first. In a culture supportive of total quality, people expect their jobs to change due to improvements dictated by customer needs. They are always looking for the better, faster, simpler, less expensive ways to do things because that's the way we've always done it. It is not valid reason for doing anything. The culture of improvement is exemplified by the Levi Strauss and Eastman chemical stories. That's why employees in a quality-oriented culture instinctively act as a team. Organizations where a focus on the customers, continuous improvement, and teamwork are taken for granted have a very good chance of succeeding at a total quality. Most organizations do not have such a culture prior to exposure to total quality. Some degree of cultural change is necessary. These elements, along with several others, are reflected clearly in the Baldrige National Quality Program criteria for performance excellence. The criteria are built upon a set of core values and concepts. Core values and concepts: visionary leadership, customer-driven excellence, organizational and personal learning, valuing employees and partners, agility, focus on the future, managing for innovation, management by fact, public responsibility and citizenship, focus on results and creating value, and systems perspective. These values provide a good summary of cultural elements necessary to sustain a total quality environment and are embedded in the beliefs and behaviors of high-performing organizations. The existence of a set of cultural values necessary for successful total quality does not mean that all organizations that wish to practice total quality must have the same culture. Many aspects of culture differ greatly from one quality-oriented company to another. Company personnel may prefer to communicate in person or in writing. They may serve smoked salmon and champagne or a bushel of crabs and a keg of beer at a company picnic. They may wear uniforms, gray flannel suits, or jeans, as long as they hold the core values of total quality. Quality can find a home in their organization.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Pressure! Pagod! Stress! Uhaw! Buti na lang, nandyan ka. Ay, sa abit ko. Sasagay ako sa aking pangarap. Basta't ang kasama ko, ikaw may liwanag. Sasagay ako sa aking pangarap.
And for our second news, here is Miss Mary May Roca reporting how organizational culture is changed.
How organizational culture is changed. How can a company change its culture to be more consistent with quality? As with most aspects of TQ, it begins with leadership. Leaders must articulate to employees the direction in which they want a company to go. They must set an objective because this will serve as their direction to achieve what they want to achieve. They must set an example by expressing TQ values in their own behavior and by recognizing and rewarding others who do the same. So it means that employees who's been recognized and given an award help them to motivate and work efficiently and effectively. They brought in a people-oriented environment. They made the environment conducive to change and tried to get to the point where employees felt safe to make change. So it means that they give importance to their employees. A great deal of effort leaders expand each cultural change is devoted to communication. Employees company-wide must be informed of the new values and practices desired. In promoting new culture, leaders must also personally practice behavior associated with new culture. This both provides a role model for employees and symbolizes management's sincerity about the new approach. It only means that a good leader is a good follower. Once a leader started practicing behaviors associated with new culture by himself, employees will follow and do the same. None of this be interpreted to mean that cultural change is easy. It's very difficult. It takes several years to complete and often fails. One reason for the difficulty is resistance by middle management. Managers resist change because it creates more work for them when they often feel overburdened and disrupts the steady flow of work in the organization. Getting on board for a change in culture requires managers to acknowledge that the current approach is somehow lacking, despite any of their previous statement to the contrary. They also may be afraid that they will not be able to perform effectively in the new culture. Often reward systems get in the way of cultural change and must be adjusted for the new culture to take hold. Managing change often requires a well-defined process, just like any other business process. In fact, an organization that doesn't realize that change is process probably won't do a good job. This is critical because about 70% of all change efforts fail. Thinking of change management as process helps to define the steps necessary to achieve the desired outcomes. There are processes consisting of 5 steps. Number 1, scope the change. Why we are doing this? Why we are doing change? Number 2, create a vision. What will the change look like? Number 3, drive commitment. What needs to happen to make the change work? And number 4, accelerate the transition. How are we going to manage the effort on an ongoing basis? And number 5, sustain momentum. What have we learned and how can we leverage it? Now that we know how organizational culture is changed, let's proceed on how making the new culture permanent. Due to the difficulty of cultural change, leaders must work to ensure not only that change is initiated, but that the new culture becomes a permanent part of the organization. Managers can take a number of paths to this destination. Number 1, make involvement in TQ a required part of people's responsibilities. Making it voluntarily implies that it is less important than things that are required. Number 2, use the existing organization to implement TQ. A special task force and committees can disband. TQ should be part of the permanent organization. Number 3, make sure everyone spends at least 1 hour a week working on quality issues. Enforcing this rule gets people used to the idea of devoting time to quality and keeps other priorities from crowding out TQ. Number 4, change the measurement and information systems. Without appropriate measurements and information, systems quality cannot become part of the fabric of the organization. And now let's proceed continuous improvement. Continuous improvement, or what we call Kaizen in Japan. To provide quality to customers is essential to total quality. The TQ ideal is not to make a big splash by improving a system only to mindlessly operate in the same. If continuous improvement applied by a certain company, not only the employees given an importance, and as well as the customers. TQ-oriented organizations relentlessly improve their process, products, and services as well as their people. Kaizen strategy has been called the single most important concept in Japanese management, the key to Japanese competitive success. It is the cumulative effect of hundreds or thousands of small improvements that creates dramatic change in performance. In the Kaizen approach, as practiced in Japan, financial investment is minimal. Everyone participate in the process, and improvements result from the know-how and experience of workers. Consider the chart in figure 6.1, shows the result of attempts by a foundry to reduce its production of scrap. The legend, line with the shape, that's year 1, line with the vertical line, year 2, and line with the X is year 3. As you can see, the average amount of scrap declined each year, from approximately 9.5 in the first year to 6.5 in the second year, and to 3.5 in the third year. Not only the level, but also the variation from month to month decline each year. Compare the wild variation in the first year to the relative stability of the third. Even when quality efforts has not been undertaken, the company occasionally got lucky and produced good quality. It took the foundry 2 years to produce a month as good as the first month of the first year. Obviously, the first month was a flop. A scrap was 50% higher the next month. The philosophy of continuous improvement was captured very well by the quality manager, who said, "We're now here, near where we ought to be, but we're getting better, and we're going to be better tomorrow." The Kaizen philosophy has been widely adopted and is used by many firms in the United States and around the world. And now let's proceed how continuous improvement is practiced. How continuous improvement is practiced. The most important ingredient for continuous improvement is one we have already discussed, an appropriate organizational culture. Given the large number of possible areas in an organization that could be improved, setting priorities is crucial, and there are several ways to do this. Many organizations rely on customer input and feedback to help set their priorities. For example, if late deliveries are the most common customer complaint, continuous improvement efforts should be directed at reducing delivery time. Often, customers cannot see inside the organization to identify the root cause of problems, so some additional sorting out is generally necessary. The Plan, Do, Study Act, or PDSA cycle, as discussed in Chapter 3, provides the basic process for continuous improvement. An operation is examined to identify potential areas for improvement. Techniques such as check sheets and Pareto charts are used to prioritize problems. Then, steps are taken to improve the operation, and the results of the change are studied. This leads to further action, and the cycle continues indefinitely. Eastman Chemical profiled in an example earlier in this chapter uses 7 steps for accelerated continuous improvement. Number 1, focus and pinpoint. Focus is about getting everyone on the same page with regard to goals. Pinpoint is about specifying in measurable terms what is expected. Number 2, communicate. Communication is done company-wide by publicizing key results areas, the vision and the mission statement, so that employees can answer the questions. What is being improved? Why is it important to the customer, to the company, and to me? What was the management team committed to do to help? And what specifically is the company asking me to do? Number 3, translate and link. Teams translate the company-wide objectives into their own language and environment. Number 4, create a management action plan. Management creates a plan with specific actions to reach a goal, including metrics to measure success. Each team member is asked to know what tasks need to be done, why they are important, and what the team's role is in getting them done. Number 5, improved processes. Teams use a 6-step problem-solving processes. Number 6, measure progress and provide feedback. Eastman is adamant about the importance of ambiguous visual feedback to employees and appropriate measures of performance. Eastman rules include feedback should be visual, frequent, simple, and specific. The baseline performance should be shown for comparison. The past, current period, and goals should be posted. The best ever score should be posted. A chart should be immediately understandable. A good scorecard allows comment and annotations. And number 7, reinforce behaviors and celebrate results. Eastman reinforces that learning leads to positive results by encouraging teams at celebration to answer the questions. What did you do? Why did it work? Why is it important for the customer, the company, and the team? How did the team accomplish its achievement? Eastman points out that its formula cannot be blindly followed by others but must be adapted to the specific corporate culture. Nevertheless, the human principles are universal. Continuous improvement efforts can be directed at a number of different types of improvement. For example, change could result in work being done more easily, more accurately, faster, at lower cost, more safely, and in a way that provides greater customer satisfaction. Thinking about continuous improvement in the way makes it clear how many opportunities for improvement exist in almost any system. How many operations are there that couldn't be improved on even one of these dimensions?
And now, for our third news, here is Miss Julian Chong reporting the breakthrough improvement.
Breakthrough improvement. Breakthrough improvement refers to the discontinuous change as opposed to the gradual continuous improvement philosophy of Kaizen. It means that breakthrough improvement is not consistent, change is always there. Philosophy of Kaizen. Kaizen is a Japanese workplace philosophy which focuses on making continuous small improvements which keep a business at the top of its field. Breakthrough improvements results from innovative and creative thinking. Often these are motivated by stretch goals or breakthrough objectives. Stretch goals force an organization to think in a radically different way and to encourage major improvements as well as incremental ones. When a goal of 10% improvement is set, managers or engineers can usually meet it with some minor improvements. Example, when the goal is 1000% improvement, employees must be creative and think out of the box. The seemingly impossible is often achieved, yielding dramatic improvements and boosting morale. There are two approaches for breakthrough improvement. First is the benchmarking. Benchmarking is a search for the best practices that will lead to superior performance. Benchmarking helps a company learn its strengths and weaknesses and those of other leading organizations and incorporate the best practices into its own operations. If the company will find new ways or new techniques in giving the best for the company, it can be resolved by the best performance of the company because they are looking for the good of the company. Benchmark also determines strengths and weaknesses of other organizations. For the company to become more successful and attainable, if the company knows their strengths and weaknesses, they will know in what aspect they need to improve more and develop more. The company can use the SWOT analysis in helping them in determining the strengths and weaknesses. It is not only to the company itself, but also to the competitors. We also need to determine the strengths and weaknesses of the competitors for the company to know in which aspect the competitors is stronger than them. The term best practices refers to approaches that produce exceptional results, are usually innovative in terms of the use of technology or human resources, and are recognized by customers or industry experts. Through benchmarking, a company discovers its strengths and weaknesses and those of other industrial leaders and learn how to incorporate the best practices into its own operation. Benchmarking can provide motivation by helping employees to see what others can accomplish. For example, to meet a stretch target of reducing the time to build new 747 and 767 airplanes of Boeing from 18 months in 1992, teams decided the world's best producers of everything from computers to chips. By 1996, the time had been reduced to 10 months. Modern benchmarking was initiated by Xerox, an eventual winner of the Malcolm Mulbridge National Quality Award. Xerox initially stated its direct competitors and discovered that its units manufacturing costs equaled the company Japanese selling price in the United States. The number of production suppliers was 9 times that of the best companies. Assembly line rejects were 10 times higher. Product line lead times were twice as long, and defects were 100 machines were 7 times higher. These results help Xerox to determine the amount of change that would be required to set realistic targets to guide in planning efforts. There are 2 major types of benchmarking. These are the competitive and the generic benchmarking. Competitive benchmarking usually focuses on the products and manufacturing of the company's competitors, as Xerox initially did. Generic benchmarking evaluates processes or business functions against the best companies regardless of their industry. Xerox recognized the potential for improving all business processes and realized that better practices in service companies and other types of manufacturing firms could be adopted to its operation. For example, the warehousing firms and distribution practices of LL Bean were adopted by Xerox. Thus, benchmarking should not be aimed solely at direct competitors. In order to be effective benchmarking, it must be applied to all facets of the business. The benchmarking process can be described as follows. First, determine which functions to be benchmarked. This should have a significant impact on business performance and key dimensions of competitiveness. If fast response is an important dimension of competitive advantage, then processes that might be benchmarked would include order processing, purchasing, production planning, and product distribution. There should also be an indication that the potential for improvements exist. Second, identify key performance indicators to measure. This should have a direct link to customer needs and expectations. Typical performance indicators are quality, performance, and delivery. Third, identify the best-in-class companies. For its specific business functions, benchmarking might be limited to the same industry. A bank in one state might benchmark for the check processing operations of a bank in another state. For generic business functions, it is best to look outside one's own industry. A university financial aid office might benchmark a bank's loan operations. For example, selecting companies requires knowledge of which firms are superior performers in the key areas. Such information can be obtained from published reports and articles, industry experts, trade magazines, professional associations, former employees, or customers and supplies. Fourth, measure the performance of the best-in-class companies and compare the results to your own performance. Such information might be found in published sources or might require sites visit in-depth interviews. Fifth, define and take actions to meet or exceed the best performance. This usually requires changing organizational systems. Simply trying to emulate the best is like shooting at a moving target. Their processes will continually improve. Therefore, attempts should be made to exceed the performance of the best. Reengineering. Reengineering, also known as process redesign, is focused on breakthrough improvement to dramatically improve the quality and speed of work and to reduce its cost by fundamentally changing the processes by which work gets done. Reengineering is often used when the improvements needed are so great that incremental changes to operation will not get the same done. 10% improvements can be created by tinkering, but 50% improvements called the process redesign. The irony of reengineering is that once the new processes is in place, people often feel that the new way of operating is so much better. They should have thought it for so long. Another common reaction is, why did we ever do it like that in the first place? The answer is often, that's the way we've always done it. In this graph, it is a process is driven by an administrative logic such as cost accounting or functional specialization. It is ripe for reengineering. The importance of process redesign to quality improvement can be seen in this figure. Based on the work of Professor On of Norway, process is what connects customers' expectation to the products or services they receive. It is what ensures that products meet or exceed customers' expectations. Principles of process redesign. Waste is the enemy of effective processes. Reducing waste of any kind encompasses both TQ and just-in-time practices and is a central theme in Japanese manufacturing management. Poor processes waste time, money, material, effort, and customer goodwill. Redesigning processes to reduce waste is at this point at least more an art than a science. Every process redesign is unique, but the general principles of redesign include: first, reduce hand-offs. Every time a process is handed from one person or another, errors can occur. Things of passes the baton in a relay race. Time is often wasted as one group waits for another to finish or needs to consult with the first group before continuing. Second, eliminate steps. The best way to save time on a step is not to do it all. If the step does not add value to the product or services or make the product more attractive to customers, stop doing it. In manufacturing organizations, moving, storing, and inspecting products rarely add value and should be eliminated wherever possible. Third, perform steps in parallel rather than in sequence. Useless one operation cannot be done until another is finished. Why? Why not done them both at once? Many organizations operate like two people doing the dishes, where one washes all the dishes that will fit in the dinner, then calls the another to dry them. When the drying is done, the dryer calls the washer back in and leaves again. And the last one is involve key people early. The point of this is to avoid doing things over when key people do not give their input until the process is underway. For years, manufacturing companies have their engineers design entire products before consulting the manufacturing engineers who will have to build them. The manufacturing engineers would then suggest a number of changes that the designers would reluctantly incorporate into their designs. Many firms recently have changed this process to allow early involvements of manufacturing. This is one of the most common forms of process reengineering and is consistent with the TQ principle. Do it right the first time.
Don't go away! We'll be right back.
A cup in hand, you know it's worth your while. A cup in hand, let's sit and stay for a while. Let minutes turn to romance. Let's mix, let's talk. One moment, one Nescafe.
And now, back on TQM News. And for the fourth news for today is about organizational learning and organizational actions and change. Reported by Miss Arianel Catu.
Organizational learning. Continuous improvement and organizational change are difficult to achieve without creating a learning organization. A term popularized by Peter Senge, a professor at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or what we called MIT. He defines the learning organization as an organization that is continually expanding its capacity to create its future. For such an organization, it is not enough merely to survive. Survival learning, or what is more often termed adaptive learning, is very important. But for learning organization, adaptive learning must be joined in generative learning, learning that enhances our capacity to create. Arkis Niederman, who had worked with Senge and spent a long career with analog devices, offers the following simple definition of organizational learning. This is the one: the acquisition, the application, and mastery of new tools and methods that allow more rapid improvement of those processes whose improve is critical to the success of the organization. The criteria view learning as having four distinct stages. First is planning, including the design of processes, selection of measures, and deployment of requirements. Second is execution of plans. Of course, you need to finish your plan when you do a plan, diba? Third is assessment of progress, taking into account internal and external results. And last is revision of plans based on assessment, finding, learning, new inputs, and new requirements. In the leadership category, for example, the requirement of organizational performance review focuses organization to provide a picture of their state of health and examine how well they are currently performing and also how well they are moving toward to the future. This review capitalizes on the information generated from the measurement and analysis of business results and is intended to provide a reliable means to guide both improvement and change at the strategic planning level. Many companies learn from Baldrige Wiener. Scott McNeely a CEO of Sun Microsystem, for example, invited 3 CEOs of Baldrige Winner, a CEO of FedEx, Motorola, and Xerox, to visit his company to discuss their quality process, and from those meetings came the core principles and strategies that Sun uses today. The key lessons that Sun learned were: first, quality must be evaluated to the level of a core management processes. Next, quality must be the first agenda item of every executive management and board meeting. Quality can be managed only if it is measured. Quality starts with the employee, of course. If the manager has a quality, of course her personnel also has a quality. Last, achievement in quality must be a factor in compensation. In explaining this approach, McNeely noted that Sun was launched as company in 1982, just about the time that Xerox was starting its leadership through quality process. We wanted to learn as much as we could about what worked and what didn't work before we started solving problems that had already been solved. One of the indicators of true learning organization is the ability to identify and transfer best practices with the organization, sometimes called internal benchmarking. This is one area where even the most mature organization falter, even those that are adept at external benchmarking. The American Productivity and Quality Center, or APQC, noted that executives have long been frustrated by their inability to identify or transfer outstanding practices from one location or function to the other. They now continue to reinvent or ignore solutions and repeat mistakes. APQC suggests that although most people have nature desire to learn and share their knowledge, organizations have a variety of logistical, cultural hurdles to overcome. These include organization structures that promote silo thinking, in which location division and function focus on maximizing their own accomplishment and rewards, or as demanding called sub-optimization. Next, a culture values personal technical expertise and knowledge creation over knowledge sharing. Next, the lack of contact relationships and common perspective among people who don't work side by side. Next, an over-reliance or transmitting explicit rather than tacit information, the information that people needed to implement, or practices that cannot be codified or written down. And then the last, not allowing or rewarding people for taking the time to learn and share and help each other outside of their own small corporative village. Internal benchmarking requires a process. First is identifying and collecting internal knowledge and best practices. After that, which is second, sharing and understanding those practices. And then the last, adapting and applying them to a new situation and bringing them up to the best practices performance level. Technology culture, leadership, and measurements are enablers that can help or hinder the process. Many organizations have created internal database by which employees can share their practices and knowledge. For example, Texas Instrument as a best practice knowledge base delivered via Lotus Notes, intranet, and TI's mainframe system. Information is often organized around business core and support processes. Cultural issues include how to motivate and reward people for sharing best practices and establish a supplementive and reward people. As with a TQ effort, senior leadership has to take an active role. This can be done by tying initiative to the company's vision and strategy, communicating success story at executive meetings, or removing implementation barriers, or pwedeng reinforcing and rewarding positive behavior, leading by example and communicating the importance of the best practices, sharing with all employees. Finally, measuring the frequency of use and satisfaction with best practices database, linking practices to financial and customer satisfaction, focusing on cycle time to implement best practices and measuring the growth or visual teams that share information or ways in which the organization or can monitor the effectiveness of its approach. Learning. Many organizations have made substantial change in their organizations that reflect continuous improvement, breakthrough improvement, and learning. In this section, we highlight some of their approaches. Now we're going to Boeing. Many organizations have attempted to change their cultures to become more responsive to customer needs. Boeing is a good example, a company in difficult competitive situation that has undertaken this task. Boeing has been featured in the aerospace industry since Bill Boeing built his first airplane, a single-engine seaplane, on 1916. Being planes were heavily involved in World War II, with almost 7,000 produced by Boeing and another 13,000 produced by other manufacturers. Using Boeing design in modern times, approximately half the commercial jets in the world have been produced by Boeing. The company contributes substantial to the U.S. balance of trade and exporting planes all over the world. Not content to the rest in the corporate laurels, however, Boeing was more the earlier leaders of the quality movement in United States. Implementing quality circles in 1980, manager at Boeing quickly recognized, however, that the corporate culture would not be changed if quality effort were to be success, and they began process to do so. This process consists of 5 steps. First step, identify norms and currently guide behaviors and attitude. Second step, identify the behaviors necessary to make the organization successful for tomorrow. Third step, develop a list of new norms that will move the organization forward. Fourth, identify the culture gaps, the difference between the desired norms and actual norms. And then the last, develop and put in place in action plan to implement the new cultural norms. These new norms will replace the old new ones, and this transition will be monitored and enforced. Boeing back up this commitment to cultural change with a great deal of training, surveying of employees and customer, and executive commitment. Today, the company faces tremendous challenges, including a decline in demand for military aircraft, competition of Airbus industry, and a very weak global market for jets. Its quality-oriented culture, however, based on customer continuous improvement and teamwork, should help it to stay competitive for years to come. As Boeing John Black reflected, this practice of continuous improvement to which we are committed is not one that can suddenly be grafted onto a company. Every organization must take it their own. Top management leadership must be provided, and all management must be brought on board. Only when all the people are committed and process is locked in for the long term will it achieve the breakthrough that it is capable of providing for us. The key to economic successful in the future. Remember that term. It is very important for us, for you to become success. For example, we are the marketing management student. Of course, we need to know how to manage our company, how we committed, and that's all. Another good example of this is the Walt Disney Company. Let me first introduce the history of Walt Disney Company. Did you know that the opening of Euro Disneyland in 1992 near in Marne-la Valley, France, brought to four the number of parks operated around the world by the Walt Disney Company? Disneyland, the original, opened in 1955 at Anaheim, California. Disney World in Orlando, Florida, opened in 1971 naman and was expanded in 1982 to include Epcot Center, Florida, opened noong 1971 and was expanded in 1982. Disneyland Overseas Park opened in 1983. Disney faced a difficult challenge in bringing its American style of fun to the French people, who are often ambivalent at best about American cultural imperialism. The opening of Euro Disney was not without problems. Of course, all business has a risk at first, and if you if you success this, of course you will have a long term in a larangan of business. As a Disney faced labor disputes over its personal appearance policies such as no facial hair and substantial difficulty with getting construction work done on time and under budget. The company anticipated and tried to diffuse and cross-cultural difficulty through an exchange of hundreds of European and American managers. Imagine that they exchange European and American managers, hundred. One major advantage possessed by Disney in establishing its European park was its ability to learn from its past successes as well as its past mistakes. When the original park was opened in Anaheim, it 185 acres will quickly surrounded by hotel and restaurants that competed with Disney-owned. This mistake was not repeated either in Orlando. Of course, they learned from their mistakes. Where Disney bought 28,000 acres, Disney built 6 hotels for the opening of Euro Disney. So, madami din. For more than would be immediately needed. Why? The company had dragged its heels in building hotels in Florida, allowing competitors to become established. Almost unbelievably, the plans for Euro Disney call for an addition 4,000 hotel rooms or retail of industrial park or even 8,000 private homes. When that thinks of continuous improvement, you need to continue your improvement on your company. Process that are repeated every hour, every day or week come to mind. However, Disney had applied continuous improvement to the process of park design, which it has practiced only about every 10 years. Of course, hindi maaari yung kung ano yung umpisa, yun na yung huli. You need to change. Of course, change for the improvement and not for the worst. This example explain us not that we didn't not to make the wala.
And now for our final news, organizational change and organizational theory, to be reported by Ms. Kimberly Gonzalez.
Before I proceed to my report, let us first recall the meaning of organization and organizational theory. An organization is a group of people who work together for a particular purpose. Organizational theory is the study of organizations, for the benefit of identifying common themes for the purpose of solving problems, maximizing efficiency and productivity, and meeting the needs of the stakeholders. Organizational change and organization theory. A large amount of research and writing in organization theory focuses on organization change. Significant organizational change occurs, for example, when an organization changes its overall strategy for success, adds or removes a major section or practice, and or wants to change the very nature by which it operates. It also occurs when an organization evolves through various life cycles. Just like people, they must successfully evolve through life cycles. For organizations to develop, they must often undergo significant change at various points in their development. Some of the more prominent organizational models include Weisbord's 6-box model, Nadler and Tushman congruence model, the McKinsey's 7's model, and Burke-Litwin model. Weisbord's 6-box model. The 6-box model is a framework developed by the American analyst Marvin Weisbord to assess the functioning of organizations. The 6-box model is comprised of the following components. First is the purpose. It requires an organization to examine and articulate its reason for existence. Next, structure. Describes organizational form through which the tasks and processes are organized. Third is the relationship. It focuses on who should deal with whom, about what, and what the quality of those relationship is. Fourth is reward. It focuses on motivation and incentive issues. Next is helpful mechanisms. It refers to the policies, programs, meetings, systems, committees, and so forth that facilitate concerted efforts to meet goals. And last is leadership. It is intentionally positioned in the center of the model. This is because it takes strong leaders to continually assess and balance the other 5 boxes. Nadler and Tushman congruence model. In this model of transformation process, the organization is composed of 4 components, or subsystems, which are all dependent on each other. These are the work. This is the actual day-to-day activities carried out by individuals. Process design, pressures on the individual, and available rewards must all be considered under this element. Next, the people. This is about the skills and characteristics of the people who work in an organization. What are their expectations? What are their backgrounds? The formal organization. This refers to the structure, system, and policies in place, how things are formally organized. And last, the informal organization. This consists of all the unplanned, unwritten activities that emerge over time, such as power, influence, values, and norms. Burke-Litwin model. The Burke-Litwin change model strives to bring in change in the performance of a team or an organization by establishing links between performance and the internal and external factor which affect performance. This change model is based on assessing the organizational as well as environmental factors which can be tweaked so as to ensure a successful change. The first is an external environment. This includes such factors as markets, legislation, competition, and the economy. Second, mission and strategy. An organization's mission articulates its reasons for existing. Third, leadership. This considers the attitudes and behavior of senior colleagues and how behaviors are perceived by the organization as a whole. Fourth, organization culture. Organization culture can be described as the way we do things around here. Fifth, structure. Very often, Changes in strategy can lead to changes in the way the organization is structured. Sixth, work unit climate. This considers employees' perception of their immediate colleagues and working environment. 7. Task requirement and individual skills or abilities. Change at a higher level in the organization will often require changes in the work carried out and the skills available in the team. 8. Individual needs and values. Changes to team membership can mean a change in the team dynamic. And last is employee motivation. Consider the significance of individual and organizational goals. Motivation is key to effective change. McKinsey's Sevens Model. In McKinsey's Sevens Model, there are two kinds of elements. These are hard elements and soft elements. Hard elements are easier to define or identify, and management can directly influence them. These are strategy statements, organization charts and reporting lines, and formal processes and IT systems. And the soft elements, on the other hand, can be more difficult to describe and are less tangible and more influenced by culture. However, these soft elements are as important as the hard elements if the organization is going to be successful. The 7S of McKinsey's Sevens Model. First is strategy. Strategy is the plan devised to maintain and build competitive advantage over the competition. Strategy is the game plan. Next is the structure. It is the way the organization is structured and who reports to whom. Third, systems. The daily activities and procedures that staff members engage in to get the job done. Fourth, shared values. It is called as the superordinate goals. When the model was first developed, these are the core values of the company that are evidenced in the corporate culture and the general work ethic. Next is style, the style of leadership adopted. Next is staff, the employees and their general capabilities. And last is the skills, the actual skills and competencies of the employees working for the company. Few change models have been rigorously validated. The plethora of changing models in use suggests that there are many viewpoints of how organizational change is achieved. However, the success by which a number of these models have been employed by scholars and consultants in empirical situations suggests that a number of these viewpoints are valid. Teleological change theory. It was suggested by Van de Ven and Poole. Teleological change posits that organizations change through an iterative process of goal setting, implementation, evaluation, and revision. Unlike other theories of change that suggest the environment as the dominant change force, teleology represents change as a deliberate undertaking by individuals affiliated with the organization. Organizational learning literature makes a fundamental distinction between single and double loop levels of learning. A single loop learning is the most common level of learning and encompasses the organization's ability to perceive deviation from perceived performance and fix them. Single loop learning occurs, for example, when managers detect a problem in implementing a specific strategic initiative and then take action to correct any deviation. Most diagnostic management control systems exhibit single-loop learning characteristics, while double-loop learning is more sophisticated, since the organization must review the underlying assumptions that created the problem to be fixed in the first place and adopt a better set of assumptions to support the future performance. Research suggests that organizational learning is enhanced when people gathered for dialogue. An important consequence of effective organizational dialogue is the reduction of defensive routines. which are policies, practices, or actions that prevent people involved in a group activity from being embarrassed or threatened, and at the same time prevent people from learning how to reduce the cause of embarrassment or threat. Perspective on TQ. We compare total quality to organization theory in terms of the reason for change, the source of change, the nature of change, the difficulty of change, and how to manage change. Our overall conclusion is that despite some differences in focus, the research on change conducted by organization theorists is a rich source of information for those embarking on the changes required by total quality. The reason for change. The reason behind TQ-oriented change is quality improvement for customer satisfaction. This has not been a major focus of the OT literature on change, which has focused primarily on changes intended to improve productivity and or improve job satisfaction. Of course, many quality-oriented changes may improve productivity or job satisfaction, but that isn't usually their main objective. The source of change. The source of most change considered in OT is top management. In general, top management respond to changes in the organizational environment, such as increased competitiveness or declining demand. This parallels the cultural change aspect of TQ. In fact, the OT literature on change is most relevant to cultural change, as opposed to continuous improvement or process redesign. Types of change. The types of changes considered in OT theories partially overlap with TQ-oriented changes. In particular, OT theories that deal with changes in values and norms are relevant to the transformation associated with cultural change in TQ. Other types of change feature in OT theories, such as introduction of new technologies, are not as directly relevant to total quality. Reengineering, however, often involves the application of some type of information technology. One of the earliest studies of organization change was conducted by Koch and French in Virginia factory that produced pajamas. In this study, a change in procedure was made in 3 different ways. In one group, the workers themselves devised the change. In a second group, workers appointed representatives who devised the change. In the third group, the new system was imposed on the workers by the management. The study found that the change was more successful in more participative groups. This study is often cited as support for the need for employee participation in organizational change. Total quality and organizational theory literature agrees on the difficulty of successfully changing organization and on the fact that resistance to change is often underlying problem. Many of the principles for managing change derived from the OT literature apply directly to total quality change. Some of these principles are as follows. First, it is necessary to unfreeze people's attitudes and behavior before they can change. This principle, a staple of the OT understanding of change, relates directly to total quality. Because organization can change in the direction of practicing total quality, people must see why the current approach is inappropriate or incomplete and what problems of competitiveness and customer dissatisfaction this causes. Cultural change in total quality is often the vehicle for unfreezing behavior. Change can only succeed with effective leadership. One early proponent of this view was Thomas Bennett. Bennett identified the need for leaders to deal with the emotional aspects of the change for subordinates, the need for clear goals, and the importance of logical problem-solving processes. This and other aspects of the leader's role identified the organizational theory clearly are relevant to total quality. Change agents must manage interdependence. Few things in organization, for example, jobs or technology, can be changed without affecting other things, structures or processes. Many OT theorists of change recognize this fact and base on their theories on the need to identify and manage the interdependence among organizational phenomena. This applies directly to the process redesign and is consistent with Deming's emphasis on organizations as system. Effective change must involve the people whose jobs are being changed. This point was noted in the reference to the Koch and French study. Although a variety of rationales for the importance of participation have been advanced, its significance for reducing resistance is the article of faith among organization change theories. This is probably the point of greatest overlap between organizational theory and total quality. The participation and involvement championed by organizational theory as much as 50 years ago have become so widely accepted in industry that they have evolved into today's concept of empowerment and self-management. Rephrasing is needed to make gains permanent. Research in OT has concluded that steps are needed to lock in the changes that have been made. This point has not been lost upon the TQ community, as many organizations are now becoming concerned about maintaining as opposed to creating change. Many of the recommendations of the OT literature, especially the need to monitor and revise change efforts continually.
And that's the latest and hottest news for this day. Keep on watching on TQM News. Balitang tagtagtaran, balitang tagtagtaran, balitang tagtagtaran. Tangoy! Report!
And the bass keeps running, running, and 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 running. Let's get it started in here.